My name is Julian Burnley. I am a product manager. I focus on preparation for the Pearson Test of English. I'm currently in Vietnam, where it's 3:30 in the afternoon. So very happy to be on this webinar presenting to you. And I'm here with a couple of colleagues who will be answering some of your questions as they come in. So I'm also here with Neil Ryder, who is not on camera, but he's here and he's part of the PTE test development team. He's based in London, where it's 8:30 in the morning. And I'm also here with Sophie Quarterman, who is our marketing manager, who's also based in London and here to answer any questions that you have throughout the session. So this session will last about 40 minutes. I will be presenting to you about PTE core reading for teachers. And as I said, throughout the session, we will be answering any questions that you have. We do not have the chat functionality because we have a high number of people attending this webinar, but we do have a Q&A box. So if you have any challenges or any questions so far throughout the session as we go through the webinar, you can use the question and answer box to put in a question. So this is how we will participate. So to start the webinar, I'm just going to move on to the next slide. So today's webinar is about PTE Core. So PTE Core is the Pearson Test of English test for Canada. So the test for general English, for work and migration, for those that are wanting to move to Canada. For those wanting to move to Canada for study purposes, it's still PTE Academic. And today we're talking about PTE Core. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the question types for PTE Core reading. We're going to look at through some teaching tips, and then we're going to finally touch on some classroom ideas. And as I mentioned, if you do have questions, you can put your questions in the question and answer box, and we will have some time at the end for questions as well. So to kick off, this slide shows the reading questions that we have on a PTE Core test. So if you are familiar with PTE Academic, so our main test, then you will be familiar with the items that we have or the question types that we have for PTE Core. So there are 5 reading question types, which are reading and writing, fill in the blanks, multiple choice, choose multiple answers, reorder paragraph, fill in the blanks again, reading, and then multiple choice, choose a single answer. And you can see from the number of questions straight away that number of questions that you face in a test for reading do vary. So you can see for reading and writing, fill in the blanks, it can be between 5 and 6. For something like reorder paragraph, it can be between 2 and 3. And the time of the reading test also changes from 27 to 38 minutes. When it comes to talking about the weighting of each question, we don't say how much each question is weighted towards the final reading score that a test taker will receive. But we do say that with PTE being an integrated test, meaning that we test different skills at the same time, it's worth noting that read aloud and summarize written text from the speaking and writing sections also contribute to the PTE Core reading score. And as I mentioned, these are the questions that you will face when you're doing your PTE Core reading test, but they can vary in number. They should not go over this number unless we are testing new items. So you might have noticed for something like PTE Academic recently, we tested some 2 new question types. I'm going to move on now and talk specifically about some of the reading questions, starting with fill in the blanks for reading and writing. So this is an example of fill in the blanks. So you can see straight away that there's 5 or 6 tasks. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The length of the text is between 100 and 200 words. you can also see by the nature of the content, if we're comparing it against PTE Academic, that it's a bit more general in content. So while it's authentic and it's taken from an authentic source for the reading, it's more general. So this one is talking about exercise. It's about regular exercise. Whereas for something like PTE Academic, it would be something more focused that you on academic purposes that you would find when you're studying. And you can see here, and then what you have to do as a student, you have to choose the correct option from each gap. When you click on the drop down, the test taker will be shown 4 different choices, and then they will then have to choose what they think is the correct gap. So this is one example of what it looks like here. Here is another example. So here we've got an email. Again, it's quite general in nature because it's talking about renting accommodation. And you can see straight away that there's gaps that will drop down, and then the student has to select the correct gap. In terms of the gaps, so here are some of the gaps, and this is taken from the PTE Core offline test. So one of the preparation resources that is available for test takers preparing for PTE Core, and you can see the gaps here. So straight away, when we've got here, we've got, hi, Susan, how's your search for student accommodation going? I've started looking, but I haven't found anything. And then we've got a gap, and we've got a choice of still, already, ever, or yet. You can see that the gaps are quite similar in terms of the choices. So there might not be one obvious choice depending on the level. And then we've got everything so expensive, isn't it? Actually, I was wondering, gap. And then again, we've got choices here. We've got a gap of how, whether, that, or even. When test takers approach a question like this, something really important is to understand the grammatical context. So something like I haven't found, we can straight away see that that's the present perfect. And because it's a negative, what can go there? It's a good idea for a student to guess before they look at the choices. Here we've got something we've always got on well, gap, each other. You can have a guess that that might be a phrasal verb, and that's a preposition that's coming between the 2 words there. And then you can see here with that gap, we've got in, to, with, or for. So yeah, that grammatical knowledge is really important here. So is that knowledge of phrasal verbs, of collocations, grammar again here. I know I'm not something at tidying up as you are. And we've got a gap here, and then our choices here. We've got as good, much good, very good, and better. When it comes to scoring for this particular question type, test takers get a score just for each correctly completed blank. So there are no, so that we suggest that test takers have a guess if they're unsure. Test takers are not penalized if they get the wrong answer for this item, for this question type. So we suggest that they try their best to complete it. In terms of test tips for a question like this, we recommend that a test taker skims the text and guesses the gaps first, and then they look for things like parts of speech, grammatical knowledge, phrasal verbs, and they look at the surrounding text for collocation and connotation. So in terms of collocation, there might be certain words that connect well. I don't think there are any strong examples here because it's mainly grammatical here, isn't it? In terms of, I haven't found anything yet. I was wondering whether you'd be interested in sharing a flat with me. I think that's most the accommodation the university offers. And then we've always got on well with each other. So it's knowledge of phrasal verbs. I'm not as good as. So again, that's knowledge of a comparative structure here. So again, lots of grammatical knowledge in this question, which is really important. If it was connotation, it could be to do with whether the vocabulary has a negative or positive view. So is it talking about something negative? Eliminate words that don't fit is a really good test strategy here. So something straight away here, we can eliminate for like gap 4 when it was I don't get on well with, I don't get on well in, is it well with someone? Well with each other. So then we can eliminate certain ones. Well in each other does not make grammatical sense as a phrasal verb. And then, as I suggested, do not leave any empty blanks because test takers are not penalized for this question. We're going to look at some of the strategies for this. So there's three main strategies here. So develop a reading habit. So it's very important that test takers practice reading as much as they can. They need to be strong readers. Another suggestion is for teachers to engage students in activity creation. So what this means is that students could write their own texts based on interests that they have, and that they could then highlight words and then look at having 4 different gaps. And then they can support each other. They can practice their own texts, and then they can tell the different gaps to a different student to then try and practice. And then, as I said, vocabulary knowledge is really important here, but as is grammatical knowledge. Because if you understand different grammatical structures at B2, B1 and above, then straight away you can know the present perfect, if it's negative, it goes with yet, and something like that can help you. We're going to move on now and talk about multiple choice, choose multiple answers. So this is the second one. So the test taker will see between 1 to 2 of these tasks, so less than the previous question. The length of the text is between 125 to 275 words, and the number of answer options are 5 to 7. What that means is here is the test taker sees 5 answers. So it says, read the text from a charity website to people who want to help the charity. Answer the question by selecting all the correct responses. You will need to select more than one response. So the test taker must select more than one response here. If they only select one response, they will only get a partial mark, I believe, but I will check that in a minute. And then you can see here. And you can see again that the content is again quite general. So it's talking about a charity website, something that you might do if you're living in a certain country. You might think about donating money to charity or going to a charity shop or something like that. So we've got 5 choices. Which items does charity ask people to give? And then we've got different nouns as choices. So it says choose more than one. So that could be 2 or it could be more than 2. Here is another example, again, in an email. So again, we had an email before, so we're seeing more emails now in terms of PTE core compared to PTE academic, where you wouldn't naturally see emails in PTE academic because it's more academic. And then again, we've got read the email from a company to its employees explaining an important change. The company has decided to move its head office because, and then we have 5 options. It wants to cut its costs. It is growing. It wants to change to different activities. It is also moving its main factory, and it wants to cause less pollution. So it's testing different reading skills here in terms of ability to skim and scan, but also ability to summarize certain paragraphs and summarize certain ideas. Again, test takers won't have a lot of time to read these questions and answer, but they need to read very quickly and then choose more than one answer. This is taken again from the PTE core offline test, which is available on the website that I will show you, and that has all the answers for these as well. The difference between this score and the scoring for this question and the previous one is that the test taker will get 1 point for each correct response, but they will receive -1 for each incorrect response, with a minimum score of 0. What this means is that if a test taker clicks on one and they submit and they go to the next question and it is not correct, they will lose marks. So again, as one of the test tips for multiple choice, multiple answers, we would not suggest that a test taker guesses the answer here, because it would be detrimental to their score if they're simply guessing, or if they're going to click on every single one and say it's all 5 when actually it's only 2. They will then lose marks back to 0. So 0 is the lowest. The minimum score they can get is 0, so they would not go into negative scoring. In terms of test tips for this question type, we've got similar. So read instructions very carefully. Remember that it's multiple answers, so it's more than one. Quickly read the text. A lot of this is about inferring the writer's opinion. So what that means is, what is the writer saying? What is the attitude of the writer? Find the specific information. You can eliminate answers which are opposite to what is said in the text, and do not guess now if you're not sure. So what I mean by eliminate answers, there might be certain things that are opposite. So it might say, we need to adapt as we get bigger. So I suppose that is a synonym. Bigger is a synonym to growing, but it doesn't necessarily say that. And one way we can do that is by moving our head office to a more central location. Straight away, we can see that there's a synonym there. So synonyms here are very important. Our head office has been in Oakhead because it was a cheaper place to do business, but now the time to relocate to the capital. Have we got anything there about the capital? So again, so that could be a reason why they're deciding to move to the capital, but again, it hasn't got that as one of the reasons, so something to not focus on. So again, very clear reading for detail here that we've got. We're going to move on in terms of some of the tips here. So again, we've got develop a reading habit. So really effective readers read English regularly. They read from different sources, especially for something like PTE core being more general. Cohesive devices. So what cohesive devices are we seeing here in terms of linking words? Generally, when we have some of these linking words, we've got over the coming weeks. However, there is a tendency for writers to put important information after these linking words. We've got however, we need to adapt as we get bigger. So straight away, identifying the linking words and the cohesive devices can actually help a student to find the answers. And then we've got skim and scan. So skimming very quickly and scanning for keywords. Again, if it was synonyms like growing, they probably could have guessed that a synonym for growing is get bigger or big, and then they could have found that. Here's another example. This is not taken from the test, but this is a prep example of what you could do. So some of the skills here needed are summarizing skills. So it's suggested that what you could do with your students is give them a different paragraph each, and then they could summarize what the main point of the paragraph is. These summarizing skills for reading a higher order thinking skills are really important for test takers to have. We're going to move on now and look at our next question type, which is reorder paragraphs. So the test taker will see 2 to 3 of these. There will be 4 to 5 sentences. So here we've got 4 to 5 sentences, a length of up to 110 words. So this is generally shorter than previous text. You can see that each sentence is generally a sentence for this example too. Some of them are complex sentences, but they don't appear to be more than one sentence. And then what the test taker needs to do is move them into the correct order. So there's lots of test tips here that you can use that we're going to go into in a minute. So in terms of scoring here, so the test taker will get scoring for a correct adjacent boxes, and there's a minimum score of 0. What does it mean by each pair of correct adjacent text boxes? So what it means here is that simply if you're putting them in order, if you're getting 1 in the correct order, you would not get a mark for that. There need to be at least 2 in the correct order to get a mark. So for example, if this one was first and this one was second, then you would get a mark, but they don't just give marks for randomly having 1 in the right order. You have to have a pair to get a mark. So it's quite a complicated task. In terms of test tips, we've got different pieces of advice. So we've got things like using course books to look at different reading texts and how to reorder paragraphs. Online texts, can they be cut up, and can students then go through them and put them in different orders? And then a lovely activity that we have is to do with an auntie's recipe. So the idea that an auntie has forgotten the orders of a recipe. You can't really see this because it's a little bit big, but the idea here is that you've got someone and they can put the steps of a recipe in order, which is very similar to reorder paragraph, and then they can look at the different strategies that you need for this question type. So straight away, we can see that most of these texts will begin with some kind of topic sentence, or they might begin with an initial instruction that makes sense. So here we've got, if it's a recipe, begin by cracking the eggs into a bowl and beating them until they are well combined. So we've got begin, and then we've got some of our cohesive devices. So we've got next, and we've got things like add and pour being infinitive verbs that generally come after. So these are different tips that will help. We've got, oh, you can see numbers here as they're sort of coming in. So straight away, we've got begin by cracking eggs. We've got add any fillings you desire. Then we've got one at the bottom here, add. We've got next. So again, these cohesive devices are really important. Cook, and then at the end, we've got the bit about simmering for 15 to 20 minutes. So yeah, a student's knowledge of recipes here. They won't all be recipes. This is just an example, but it's a good context for teaching students. This is a context about exercise. Again, this is a prep example, so not taken from the actual test, but you can see straight away the same thing works where we've got these infinitive verbs, and then we've got certain aspects of cohesion and coherence. So things like want, generally wouldn't see that at the beginning of a text. So it might not be your first one. Here's another example. So this is from a blog post about traveling on your own. They're in the wrong order. Put the text box in order by dragging them from the left to the right panel. So again, we've got 5 that need to be put into the correct order. And again, this is taken from the PTE core offline test. And straight away, a test taker's knowledge of that coherence will know that, for instance, won't go first because it's giving an example of something that's come before. It would be quite strange to start a text with however. So then we've sort of eliminated those 2 already. Then we've got other ones, perhaps the main one. Again, starting a text with perhaps would be quite strange. At the same time, it has also encouraged me to make the effort. Again, this is a strange one. So then we've got this one possibly as the first one. When I decided to take a holiday with my friends or family, I felt a bit nervous. Straight away, we can hone in on that one as the first one and then go from there. So that's basically our topic sentence. Here's another one that we've got. So this one is taken from PTE core. So sentences in a paragraph from a magazine article about staying cool in hot weather, in the wrong order. So again, we've got 5. Again, the content is quite general in nature. So that's a key difference again to PTE academic. And straight away we can look for some of the cohesive devices while hot. But, so generally we wouldn't start a paragraph with but. If possible, it's a good idea. So again, that's slightly strange. So then we can go through and you can see the answers in the offline test. Some of the tips we have for reorder paragraph, we've got skim and read the text, activate your schemata. So in terms of what we mean by activate your schemata, is students will have knowledge about recipes, they will have knowledge about holidays, about staying cool in cool weather, in hot weather. So they should have an idea of what the text might talk about. Find the topic sentence first. Identify a logical order, use the linking words or the cohesive devices. And it's always a good idea to reread the text once you've done it. Another important thing, if we just go back to this example, is things like substitution, where we've got things like, for instance, it was so lovely to spend the whole day relaxing on the beach instead of doing, there's nothing there. But sometimes you might have something like this or it or they. Oh, here you go. However, I soon realized that there were some great advantages to this type of travel. So again, we've got this. It's referencing backwards to something. So what does it refer to? This type of travel, it refers back to going on holiday without friends or family. So we can know that because there's substitution there, that's further on in the text, not the first part. Wary of time, and we're going to go on to fill in the blanks reading. So similar to fill in the blanks reading and writing, We've got number of tasks. We've got 4 or 5. Up to 80 words. So quite short texts, these for PTE core. And then a choice of between 6 to 8 words to choose from. And then you've already got the choices. So you're not typing anything in, you're just selecting and dragging the correct word. Here we've got a choice of 6 words: download, artist, players, images, screen, speakers, and use. And then we've got a text. So this text is about a new phone. So again, the content is quite general in terms of something you might be doing every day where you're living abroad in English. You'd be looking at different phones or shopping. And here we can see the X70 Pro phone is our best ever phone. The sound quality is brilliant, especially when the phone is connected to, and then we've got choices. And straight away we can look at collocations. We can see what goes together. Connected to something is a phrase. Connected to noun. So we're looking for nouns. We can then discount download because it's a verb. Artist is a noun, but doesn't fit. Players is a noun, but doesn't fit here. Images is a noun too, but you can't connect to images when the phone is connected to screen. Again, screens probably would fit, but we've got a grammatical thing there where you would need an article in terms of a screen. We've got use, which is a verb, so it can be discounted. And then we've got speakers, which fits, and it also fits with the context. So we're talking about the sound quality. So traditionally in paper-based reading text, you'd be able to underline words. You cannot underline words here because it's a computer-based test, but you will still have, the test taker will still have access to their invisible pad. So they can always take notes, and straight away we can see the context of sound quality, and then we can see connected to noun and understand that the answer should be speakers there. ProPhone customers have free access to our website where you can listen to albums by your favorite. And then straight away, so we're talking about the website, we've got listen to albums. If we're talking about word families in terms of listening to albums, you might have download, because you could download music. Screen doesn't really fit in. Speakers we've already used. Use doesn't really fit in, but then we've got artist, so we've got musical artist. We've got favorite artist, does fit in. Then we know that favorite something, so again it's a noun, so that's suitable. So slowly we're going through these one by one and sort of looking at what could fit. You can also access them whenever you go if you something onto your phone. So again, we've got if you something them. So again, we're looking maybe for a verb. So knowing that which ones are verbs, knowing which parts of speech here can really help a test taker to understand if you download them onto your phone. And then finally, we've got one final gap here. Another great function is this camera, which takes amazing. So I would say photos there. We haven't got photos, so a synonym for photos could be images. So here we've got four gaps, yeah. And then we've got other examples here. Again, reading a restaurant review in a magazine, where we've got different options. And then this is the one that we've already looked at. In terms of scoring for this one, test takers can guess. They will just get a correct score for each completed blank. So if they do not, if they have the incorrect, if they put an incorrect word into the blank, they are not penalized. And the minimum score is 0, so they do not receive a negative score. 0 is the last one they can get. It's the lowest mark they can get, I mean. As I mentioned before, they need lots of reading practice. A good activity for this as an English teacher is running dictation. So what you can do is you can put, with this example here, you could, if you have a pair of students, one of them could have the text. You could put the words outside the room. Second student will run outside, try to remember the list of words, then come back in, tell the other student the list of words, write them down together, then try to put them into the text together. So this is a fun way of doing reading together. It's also maybe a good idea for students to mark the parts of speech before they start, to think about, just list quickly what are the parts of speech. So we know this is a verb, this is a noun, this is a plural noun, this is a plural noun, this is a singular noun, this is a verb, this is a plural noun. And that can help you to then figure out what goes in the gaps. Another good piece of advice if you're looking to make this reading activity a bit more fun with your students is storytelling. So students can write their own stories. They can write what they did on the weekend. They can focus on something they did on the weekend, again, because it's quite general. And then they can then leave gaps. They can write their own gaps, and then they can then test other students on their text and their different gap choices. So again, just a different way of doing something fun with this. So I think the main strategy here we've got is about parts of speech, really important. Knowledge of collocations, again, is important. So if you know amazing images is a collocation, amazing photos, and rule out or eliminate certain words that don't go together. Our final reading task is multiple choice, choose single answer. So between 1 to 2 texts, a length of text between 70 to 110 words, so quite a short text. You have 4 answer options, and the test taker must only choose one answer here. With text answer. So here is an example. So they're choosing one answer here. So they just have 4 options. They're choosing one answer. Only one response is correct. So very clearly it says one response is correct. We've got a general content here around opening of a bay center. So if you're living anywhere, you'll see new shops opening, different promotions, different advertisements, and straight away you have to choose one. So it might be something quite specific. Which of these is only available during bay center opening day event on June the 1st? Again, it's useful for students to sort of quickly underline, they cannot underline in a computer-based test, but understand the key words. You've got opportunities to win prizes, discounts, 2-for-1 cinema tickets, and then free t-shirts for shoppers. We've got on the June the 1st. So again, we've got June the 1st to celebrate our opening. We can look for synonyms. The fun doesn't end at our welcome event. The Bay Centre is holding a film festival, and don't miss the amazing cafes and restaurants. And then the day will include plenty of surprises and fun, like our photo competition, where you can win a camera or other cool things. Simply find a member of staff, take a selfie and share it on our website. So we've got win a camera. So straight away, we've got the word win, then we've got win prizes here. And we've got the day, so it's referring to June the 1st. So then we can see that that is the correct answer. And then we can eliminate the other ones because it doesn't talk about discounts, but then you might think here, buy one cinema ticket, get the second free. So that's something called, it's a little bit of a distractor there, isn't it? In terms of trying to, you might see that and think, oh, you can get discounts, but then you say for the whole month, and it doesn't refer to the opening day on June the 1st. So that could be a 2-for-1 cinema tickets, discounts at the food court. It just says restaurants in the food court, doesn't say anything about discounts. And again, it doesn't refer to that day. And then we've got free t-shirts for shoppers. We haven't got anything. Did we can't say anything about free? So we can discount that one just because it's not there. And again, scoring for this one is to do with just whether the test taker chooses the correct response or not. They are not penalized. There is only one correct response. Should be able to do it quite quickly. And again, we have similar reading tips in terms of developing a reading habit, understanding those cohesive devices. I suppose a really key one here is also that those distracting information, because they might have texts naturally, authentically have distracting information. And this one does too in the second paragraph. There's a test tip here around how it's structured. They've sort of got all the information about the question in one paragraph. And then knowledge of vocabulary is still important. So you've got read the instructions for the context, review your answer options, scan the text, and then eliminate incorrect responses. Other reading tips that we haven't had the chance to talk about today. Obviously, timed practice and time conditions are really, really important. So we've gone through these at a leisurely pace, but students will need practice of the number of questions in the time, because even though they might be fantastic in answering these questions, they are under timed conditions. They have limited time. to answer them. And with it being a computer-based test, they cannot go backwards, they can only go forwards as well. So they don't have a chance to then go, oh, I've just remembered something, I'm going to go back to something. They need to answer and then move on. As I've mentioned today, I've sort of compared how this is computer-based reading. Students may be, depending on their age, I suppose, they may be more familiar with more traditional reading practices with techniques like underlining keywords, underlining answers in text, and they can't do this in a computer-based reading text. It's really important they have practice of actually reading on the computer and answering and filling in the gaps in the computer as well, because there are computer skills needed for this as well. Managing reading stress, maintaining focus. The reading will come after the speaking and writing section. So yeah, they'll need lots of practice to ensure that they do maintain focus, they don't get distracted. They can choose whether they want to keep their headphones on, or if they want to take them off. They might just want a break. When I took the test a few weeks ago, I took them off for the reading just because they need it for that. As a teacher, it's important that you review the reading strategies to teach them to make sure that they become embedded. What I mean here is by embedded is that you may tell a test taker the strategies, but then if they don't review them and practice them regularly, they're not going to be embedded within their short-term and long-term memory. So constant review of these strategies in terms of as soon as you see one of these question types, you need to identify the parts of speech. And then, as I've said before, traditional reading tips like underline keywords, rereading, underline, where in the text the answer is, are still useful, but not the same because it's based on a computer-based text. I did just want to show summarized written text, which is in the writing section, which does contribute towards the reading score for PTE core. So it contributes because there is a reading element to this. In terms of summarizing the email they need to read to be able to summarize. So that's why it's integrated. And then read aloud also contributes to reading. So that's the first question from the speaking section. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight some of the preparation resources that we have for reading and for PTE core generally. So they are all accessible through our PTE core website. If you go onto PTE and you go to PTE core, there is a preparation tab. Within the preparation tab, we have a number of current PTE core preparation resources. So we have the online course, which is where a student can go through, they can practice reading questions and get feedback. And they can also watch videos explaining strategies again. And that's done with one of our partners, E2 Language in Australia. So that's a really useful course for test takers to complete. We've got the PTE core offline test. So lots of these examples have come from that. That offers reading questions and an answer key. We've got PTE core videos of reading questions. So they can familiarize themselves with the reading questions, the 5 of them. Got test tips document, which is the PDF, which summarizes some of the tips that have come up today. And of course, the PTE core score guide, which talks about how these different questions are scored. We've also got a couple of resources coming soon for PTE core preparation. So we've got a taster test coming soon, which is something that will sit on the PTE core website where they can quickly just practice some more reading questions, because we know that test takers really want as many PTE core authentic test questions as they can find, and that we're planning to launch a new online test soon where students can actually go through and practice and get see sample answers and get answers for reading. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of the main presentation. So thank you everybody for listening. So I'm just going to hand over, Neil, to sort of see what's come up. Have been any themes or any questions, or I suppose this is your chance. If you've got any questions that you would like answered about PTE core generally, you can put them in here as well. So I don't know, Neil, if you want to come off, anything specific has come up, or was it being quite? I don't think I've got Neil coming off. So So we do have a few minutes left. So if there are any other questions that are coming up, I can certainly have a quick look through to see what's coming up. You'll notice, let's have a look. Yep, so PTE Core is available to book now. So students are booking and taking the test as we speak. There are a few questions around what can we expect more of. So we will have more practice questions coming very soon, the end of February, beginning of March. There are some more specific questions that we had, some fantastic questions around collocations and connotations. So we had a good definition there. So a collocation are words that go together. So you might have a collocation, something like wide awake. You wouldn't have, trying to think of it. You wouldn't have closed awake. They don't go together. Wide awake do. Fast asleep is a collocation, whereas connotation is whether the vocabulary item is positive or negative. We've got some other questions. And of course, this video will be recorded, it has been recorded. So you can always review this if you want. And yeah, there are quite a few differences between PTE Academic and PTE Core that I think have been explained. The reading questions are the same, but then there are differences in terms of the content. So yeah, lots of really good questions. I can see a few more coming in, which is good.
So Julian, if I may, there is one question.
Of course, yeah.
I think it's interesting because some of them were answered about the structure, about the nature of the text, about the preparation, but there is a question like about, would it be good to teach the students about Canadian culture since it's PTE Core?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. Thanks, Bartek. Yeah, so I believe that for PTE Core, we do actually use a range of texts and a range of accents, especially for listening. So it's not very specific to Canadian culture. It's more general culture. So we do take text from a variety of sources, be it from the UK, from America, from Canada. So a test taker would not need specific knowledge of Canada. I, for one, have never been to Canada, but I recently took the PTE Core exam and I did very well. So yeah, you do not need specific knowledge. Again, and all these text types are designed specifically that anyone can answer them. Thanks, Bartek. Have we got any sort of more summarizing questions that you sort of thought were coming up?
Hi, Julian. Sorry, I was frozen when you asked me to speak earlier. There's quite a few questions about scoring, like scoring weighting and overall scoring tables. And I'm not sure how much we can say in this session.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Neil. Thanks. Yeah, so officially we do not release the weighting of question by question in terms of how it sort of feeds up into your reading score. I think a good rule of thumb is the longer that something takes to actually answer, the more it's going to contribute to your score. We recommend that students answer every single question in the reading. They don't skip ones. But yeah, it's not something that we release in terms of the specific percentages, and we don't say read aloud contributes this much to your overall reading. Yeah. Neil, anything else coming up?
Lots of smaller questions that I've just been answering as they come in, just kind of about item specs. Which items are there differences between academic versions of the items and core versions? Like text types, quite a few people have been asking about, like, these, what you're presenting seems to be the same as PTE Academic. Is there any difference? But the main difference is just that the texts aren't going to come from like academic textbooks and that for core, but otherwise they're very similar. Yeah,
thanks, Neil. So I think that's a really important one, isn't it, in terms of the content, in terms of the types that we're talking. And the reading is very similar to PTE Academic in terms of the skills, but then the texts are going to be quite different.
Somebody had asked about if you could explain schema or
Oh,
schemata.
great. Yeah. So schema and schemata. So schema and schemata is that throughout your life, regardless of where you're living, is you're going to have lots of experiences and you're going to build up knowledge. And you're going to have knowledge. So one of the examples that I showed you was to do with recipes. So I think every person in the world will have an understanding of what a recipe is, that a recipe will have different steps, that you might start a recipe saying, this is how we make eggs on toast or something. So your schema is basically your prior knowledge, the knowledge that you've built up in your life, and that you can use that when you're reading any text. So if it's academic, so if you're reading an academic text about how the Tesla cars are made with Elon Musk, you will already have knowledge about what to expect. You already have knowledge that what cars that have different parts, that they have wheels and things, different parts. You might also have knowledge about cars being automated in terms of the process to make them, that they're not handmade. And all these things that you already know will then help you to then answer questions and understand a text. So that is called your schemata. And then when we say activate your schemata, we mean that you need to go back into your prior knowledge. You have all these understandings of a text, and then you can use the knowledge you have to answer questions on it. Thanks, Neil. Anything else sort of coming up that we haven't had a chance to?
I'm just having a look here. Some of these are quite short. I can just type the answers out. They're very specific.
There's some questions around PTE academic and sessions that are coming up. So I've just been kind of explaining there's some coming up in March, and we'll have the links and the registration and stuff together fairly soon to be able to share with people.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah. So we're very excited that we'll be launching our new webinar series focused on PTE academic soon with Bartek, who's leading again these PTE core teacher webinars. So he did the webinars last week. So if you did have the chance last week to attend our webinar on speaking and writing, and we have another one coming up this Thursday for PTE core on listening, we'll be running very specific PTE academic webinars specifically for teachers. Yeah, thank you, Sophie. So I think we've come to the end of this webinar. So in order to keep up to date, I would recommend looking through the PTE core preparation webpage. Lots of information there, and we will be adding preparation resources specifically for PTE core, but also PTE academic over the next few months.
Julian, can I add something? One small thing.
Of course you can, Bartek.
Yeah, because this is like, as you'll be probably watching the recording again. So some of the materials were taken from our preparation materials. Some of them are taken from our course books, and some of the teachers can create their own materials, like, as you explained, this forgetful auntie's recipe, when you can find recipes online, mix the paragraphs. And just one element, because one of the teachers increased the challenge. So as you saw the numbers of the paragraphs in the correct order, one of the section wasn't numbered, there was a smile next to it. So basically the increased challenge was that one extra paragraph didn't belong to the recipe. So the one extra paragraph was about the soup, and the rest was about making an omelette. So as you do the preparation course and you do various activities, you can play with the challenge. If you see that you want to add extra engagement, so you can supplement this small little thing to increase the level, or you can do it without it. Just one small explanation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bartek. That's a great tip. Yeah. And I think that sort of links in, doesn't it, in terms of the challenge of different reading texts. So they all have a different level of challenge. They're not all the same, exactly the same level of challenge. Great. Okay, so I think without further ado, we're going to close the session there. So thank you very much. And wherever you are, have a great day, whether you're getting towards the afternoon, the evening, like me, or whether it's the morning for you. So thank you very much. Looking forward to see everyone on the next set of webinars.